Hello, hello. So I'm actually re-recording this video because I was an idiot and had my mic on mute. So I literally just recorded this with my mic on mute. So I'm having to redo the whole video, but that's okay. So we're back with another music themed tier list. This time I'm doing Australian, Melbourne-based psychedelic rock band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Like I said, they're from Melbourne, which is where I live, represent, and they are a kind of prolific psych rock um, band, but they dip into other genres. They like to change up their genres sometimes and experiment with new sounds in different albums. And they've released a lot of records. They started in 2010, and they've released 18 records. Um, in the course of they've only been around for about 11 years, and they even one year in 2017 released 5 records in that one year. So you'd think sort of with a band being releasing that much content that they might not it might not be as high quality as you'd expect, but you'd be wrong because they actually do release consistently good music, even though they like to release a lot of music um, in a short space of time. So, with that being said, again, I'm not the I don't proclaim to be the biggest King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard fan out there. I do really enjoy their music. I think they're a great band, but I'm not their biggest fan or anything. So my opinions may be different to some of those super fans out there. I also tend to enjoy more of their prog rock sort of heavier albums than their more classic psych rock sound that they're probably more well known for. I do still like their psych rock stuff, but I'm more into their progressive kind of psych rock sound. So with that in mind as well, because their discography is so large, they've got 18 albums that I got to get through. I'm going to do my best to go through it really quickly, punch it out, rapid fire round, quick opinions, name of the album, when it came out, quick opinion on it, and rank it, and just kind of move on. Unless it's an album that I really feel like, giving it a bit more attention, I'm going to try and smash these out. And the purpose of this video is purely just to, if there's people out there who want to get into King Gizz, like they want to listen to some of their music, they've never listened to them before, but they don't know where to start, because it's an intimidating backlog of albums. This you can use this as a rough kind of guide to be like, start here and move around, down the list. If you like them, like if you start with these couple albums and you like them, then you can move down the list and sort of form your own opinions. Because definitely, my opinion will differ from a lot of people on some of these records. I think, there's a few that most people would agree with me, but there are definitely also a few that people would be like, I don't know about that. So keep an open mind, just my opinion. Feel free to voice your own opinion in the comments. But without further ado, let's get started. So, again, they formed in 2010. Their first album that they released was kind of an EP, but I'll still count it. It is Willoughby's Beach, which was released in 2011. It's a very kind of like stoner surf psych rock sound. It's very short and punchy. It's really fun, It's got that kind of fun, punchy, party vibe. I would definitely put this on at like a drink up with the lads kind of party. It's kind of that kind of sound. And with that, I would say it's a solid B tier. I mean, I wasn't expecting too much from it when I first listened to it because it's their first, it's like an EP. But I was actually pretty impressed. It's a very good, strong start to their discography. Moving on, in 2012, they released 12 Bar Bruise, which is like a thrashy punk garage rock kind of sound. It's very loud. It's very fast paced and in your face. But it's very rough around the edges. It was a little bit samey in parts, and I mean it's so rough around the edges that I'm pretty sure they even recorded some of the songs on like iPads and stuff. Like it's very intentionally rough, but I think it suffers a little bit in some parts because of that. And I wasn't too blown away by any particular song or anything, so because of that, I'll probably chuck it at a C tier. Next up, we have in 2013 they released Eyes Like the Sky, which is a strong concept storytelling album. It's basically like a spaghetti western soundtrack album. It's got a lot of narration and storytelling throughout the whole album, and it just sounds like it could be used for any western movie. It's they do that sound really well. Like, it's a very immersive experience of an album. It definitely nails that western soundtrack sound very well, and everyone's playing well, and it's tight, and it's good production. But it's just not something that I would personally seek out to listen to again. Or there's not really, again, any real songs on there that I would particularly want to listen to on their own either. So because of that, I'm gonna rank it at a D. It's definitely not a bad album by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not for me. It's not something that I particularly enjoyed. Next up, also in 2013, they released Float Along, Fill Your Lungs, which is the start of when they started really making a name for themselves as a psych rock band. This is a very classic kind of 60s, 70s inspired classic psych rock. It's got a lot of slow chugs. It's very hazy and heady. Very, very, very stoner album. Like, if you're a stoner, you'd love this album. And I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a pretty good album. And for that, I would probably chuck it at a B tier. Next up, in the following year, 2014, they released Oddments, which is like a stoner psych rock kind of folky album. It's kind of got like a melancholy vibe to it here and there. It's very 60s, 70s sort of sound again. Almost a little bit Beatles vibe, but don't quote me on that. I just feel like it sounds a little bit Beatles here and there. Excuse me. And I don't know, it didn't blow me away though. I wasn't too impressed with this album, so I'd probably just chuck it at C tier. It's not bad, but it's not something I was like blown away by either. Next up, also in 2014, we had I'm in Your Mind, Fuzz, which is, I'd say, probably a fan favorite from what I've seen. It's like a stoner psych rock slow jam kind of album. Again, very 60s, 70s inspired sound, very hazy, very melancholy, very groovy as well. But I liked it. It was a good album. Maybe I need to listen to it a few more times. But it didn't, compared to some of their other albums, I wouldn't put it on par with some of their stuff that I consider to be their, best work. But it's still a good album. Absolutely. It's still a great album. I would put it at a comfortable high B tier, bordering on an A tier, but for me, probably a comfortable high B. Next up, in the following year, we have 2015's Quarters, which is again, very classic 70s, 60s psych rock inspired album sound with like very slow, hazy, floaty, makes you feel like you're almost swimming through the music. It's kind of melancholy as well in parts. But it's great. It's got a lot of jam songs on it. It's, the whole point of the album's Quarters, so it's 4 tracks that are 10 minutes, 10 seconds long, adding up to 40 minutes, 40 seconds. So they were very into the 4 number in this. And it's a good album. I like it. Especially, The River and God Is in the Rhythm they're great songs. God Is in the Rhythm is like a great song that you'd chuck on if you were going for a long drive. It's just a very chill song. And I would put it at a comfortable high B tier. Also in 2015, they released Paper Mache Dream Balloon. Paper Mache Dream Balloon was kind of one of their first departures from their sound that they were so comfortable with. And when they started more experimenting with, well, what if we tried doing this kind of sound instead? And it's like it's just a straight up folk acoustic rock album. It's very, very chill album, very relaxing, easy listening, but it's still got some catchy hooks in it. There's songs like Bone, Trapdoor, Cold Cadaver. They're all very catchy songs. But yeah, they're all very chill, very easy listening. I would put it again at a comfortable B tier. And now, so in 2016, they released Nonagon Infinity. Nonagon Infinity is for me, where the band really starts to show that they are extremely, talented and should be taken notice. People should be taking notice of them. Um, they kind of hit this stride at the start of 2016 and into 2017. They just hit this creative stride where they were, you know, producing really, really on point, tight, well produced, well played albums, and consistently too. I mean, in 2017 they released 5 albums, and all those albums are good albums. But it all started with, for me, Nonagon Infinity. It's the album that most people who've heard of King Gizz will probably be recommended to start with. And it's probably the most mainstream, most well-known album of King Gizzard. And for good reason, in my opinion, because Nonagon Infinity is a fantastic album. It's amazing. It's something to write home about, for sure. It's a progressive kind of thrash psych rock album. It was a bit of a concept piece. It's 9 tracks, and they all link together and reference each other. Like some songs might have similar riffs or lyrics that throw back to the previous track, or even a couple of tracks back. And if you have it on repeat on like a digital playlist, the last track seamlessly links back up with the first track. So Nonagon Infinity, 9 tracks, and it's an infinite loop. But it's not like, that's cool and all, and that's a cool little sort of bonus. But the album, every song on that album is 10 out of 10. Like, they're all excellent songs. You don't get kind of like listener lethargy. It changes it up in sound quite often. And you got like classics like Gamma Knife. Gamma Knife is incredible song. And you got more chill songs like Mr. Beat. It's just excellent album. I could listen to it all the time, and it's one of those albums that you definitely want to listen from start to finish. You don't want to listen to just 1 or 2 songs. And because of that, again, it's fast paced, punchy, in your face, and loud. Really catchy songs and memorable songs. I think it's absolutely an S tier album all day, any day, all day. Whatever you ask me, it's always an S tier, 100%. In the following year, in 2017, this is the start of when they did their 5 albums in one year. Project, I guess. Starting off extremely strong with Flying Microtonal Banana. And this is like an experimental progressive psych rock album, but they were trying to experiment with microtones or halftones. I'm not a music theory expert. I'm a drummer, but I'm not really, that knowledgeable about music theory and all of that. But from what I understand, microtones are the tones or notes that are played in between other notes, and it gives off that really Eastern sound. And I think, this album, yeah, it's very Eastern sounding, very, very groovy. It's got some really groovy breakdowns and jams in it, very catchy songs as well, but it's also very psychedelic and heady. And it's the way I would describe the sort of overall feeling of this album is if you went into the middle of the desert and took peyote, this would be the soundtrack to that trip. But yeah, it's a great album. It's excellent. Again, S tier, absolutely, every day, all day. Ask me anytime. S tier every time. So again, 2017 album. Murder of the Universe. Murder of the Universe was again a bit of a. They were trying to do something heavy, and it's a progressive kind of thrash psych rock sound. It's very heavy compared to any of their previous stuff. Very loud and in your face. Very brutal and violent themes and lyrics. It's got a lot of strong storytelling in it, but it's also very groovy and catchy and has that classic King Gizzard sort of sound to it. Something kind of controversial on the album was, not controversial, but just, dividing between the fans, was the narrator. There's this woman narrator that consistently kind of speaks like this, like almost spoken word poetry throughout the album to tell the stories of each part, because the album's in 3 parts. And, I think it adds a lot of, theming, and it helps push the vibe that they were going for and the storytelling in the album. Sometimes it can be a bit much, and sometimes it kind of overshadows the sound of the album because the playing and the instrumentals and the singing from Stu is really good. So sometimes it can get in the way of that a little bit, but it does add to the vibe. I don't think it's that bad. And yeah, as well, the album is in kind of three parts. It's the Tale of the Altered Beast, Lord of Lightning and the Balrog, and the cyborg part. I always forget the name of him, but it's basically about a cyborg who wants to be able to vomit and die from vomiting, which is extremely bizarre. But you do you, cyborg. So yeah, I mean, I really like this album. It's not for everyone because it is quite heavy and quite intense, but I think it's a really good album. I would definitely put it in an A tier for sure. Excuse me. Again, 2017 album. Sketches of Brunswick East. The band is based in Brunswick East, which is in Melbourne, which is funny enough only a couple of suburbs over from where I live. Represent. And it's just basically a jazz album. It's like a psych jazz album. It's very chill, slow, hazy, groovy, a little bit melancholy. They collaborated with another band. Unfortunately, I forgot the name of that other band or those other members that they kind of collaborated with. But it's very good at what it's trying to do. It's a good jazz album. I think any you know jazz fan would listen to this and be like, this is good. This is a well done jazz record. I personally, jazz isn't my favorite genre. I enjoy jazz, but it's not, in my top rated kind of genres that I enjoy. But I very much appreciate, the playing, the the vibe that they were going for. It's a great album, but it's just not my favorite. But I would put it at a comfortable B tier, like a high B tier, but still at a B. Next up, Polygondwanaland. They kind of went back to more of just a chill psych rock album. It's very slow, floaty, heady. It did get a little bit samey for me. Like nothing stood out extremely strong to me throughout the album. I might need to give it a couple more listens, but the first few listens I was not blown away. Definitely not a bad album, and I know a lot of people really like this album, so I'm probably going to get shit for this, but I would put it at about a C tier. Didn't blow me away. I might need to give it a few more chances, but that's just how I feel about it at the moment. And then finally, for the 2017 albums, we have Gumboot Soup. And Gumboot Soup for me was actually really good. I actually really enjoyed Gumboot Soup. It's like a progressive folk psych rock album. It has a lot of different genres and sounds throughout the album. Like a lot of different songs sound very different, but it's still very groovy. It's very trippy, and psychedelic. It's catchy. I think it's a really cool album. It's a little bit different from what they usually do. I enjoy it. I would put it at a comfortable B tier. So moving on, in 2019 they released two albums, very polar opposites in sound as well. So we started with Fishing for Fishies, which is another kind of chill psych folk rock album, kind of similar to Paper Mache. Obviously it's not all acoustic, but similar kind of vibe to Paper Mache Dream Balloon. Very chill album, still funky and groovy and catchy, as we know come to expect from King Gizz. Not a lot of people liked this album, but I actually thought it was pretty good. I actually don't mind it. I think it's a pretty decent album, so I'm going to put it at a B tier. And then later in that year, they released a completely polar opposite sounding record, Infest, the Rat's Nest, also in 2019, which is basically a thrash sludge doom metal album. And it's very loud. It's got some heavy chugs in it. It's brutal and harsh themes in the lyrics and concept of it. It's like about dystopian future of the Earth being destroyed by humans, and then all the rich people getting on a space colony and leaving Earth and leaving all the poor people there, and super viruses and bugs and all those kind of dystopian sci-fi kind of themes. But apart from that, it's a really heavy hitting, thrashy, sludgy metal album. I mean, it literally feels like you're moving through molasses in like some, I don't know, like a dark forest or something. It nails that theme very well. But I will say that it gets a bit, you get a bit listener lethargy from it. It gets a bit exhausting in the final kind of leg of the album. I get a bit like, okay, this is a little bit samey. It's a little bit much of the same thing. But there are definitely a few standout tracks on there, and I really appreciate that they tried to do just a straight up metal album. I think it's a good album. I'd put it at about a B tier though. Last couple records. So first we have 2020's KG. KG, they went back to that kind of experimental microtonal psych rock sound that they kind of did with Microtonal Flying Banana. But I would say that KG is a lot more Eastern sounding than Banana. Banana's got, you know, the microtones in it, but it doesn't feel quite as Eastern sounding as KG. Um, and KG is, I really liked KG. I know a lot of people didn't seem to like it very much, but I actually really like it. It's very very groovy sounding album. You know, it's very strong Eastern sound as well. It sounds like I'm in like a hookah lounge in, or an opium den in some Eastern country. And it's really groovy and hazy, and but it's got some catchy hooks, and it's got some chill songs in there too. Um, I think it's pretty good. I think it's got a nice mixture of sounds throughout the album in terms of, you know, chill, funky and groovy, and classic psych, and you know, I think it's cool. I think it's a cool album. I would put it at a comfortable A tier. And then finally, in 2021, only a few weeks ago, they released LW, which is again, it's kind of like a sister record to KG. It's similar in sound and vibe, um, and but they've toned down the Eastern sound a little bit. It's just a bit more. It's got microtones and stuff, but it's a bit more chill psych rock, experimental psych rock. You know, it's floaty, it's hazy, it's lazy kind of vibes. It's got some nice grooves in it. It gets, for me, gets a little bit samey. Um, Not many songs jumped out individually to me on the first few listens. It's got a great finisher though. The final song of the album is awesome. But again, I feel like people won't really agree with me too much on this, but wasn't thrilled by it. I might need to give it a few more listens, but I wasn't amazed by it on my first view. So I'm going to put it at about a C tier, personally. And there you go, guys. That's my opinion on all of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard's albums, ranking them in a tier fashion. Please feel free to let me know what you think. You know, comment if you agree or disagree. Let me know what you think about it. Please, you know, give me a like, subscribe if you enjoy these videos. I definitely will be making more, you know, not just music videos, but, you know, I make video game related stuff as well. And I'd love to be able to share that with you guys, you know, and it supports me as a content creator to know that I'm, you know, making content that people enjoy. So please give it a like, please subscribe. It only takes 1 second, and I really appreciate it. You know, share it around as well. That would be really appreciated. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one.